Evangelos Marinakis, you are a baby. A huge, massive, absolute crybaby. You should hang your head in shame. Last week, Thursday, we got the bomber from many journalists around the world of football confirming that Tottenham Hotspur had bidded £60 million for Morgan Gibbs-White, who is, I don't think he's the actual captain. I think Ryan Yates is the captain, but obviously he plays more than Ryan Yates. So one of the best players at Nottingham Forest for £60 million. We were going to pay the release clause, and he was set to have a medical on Friday. But in steps in the crybaby, the man that cries about everything. If we talk about what he's done to Crystal Palace, the fact that he's got them thrown into the Conference League, when he hired Mark Clattenburg to oversee their VAR, and then obviously he's cried about Stuart Atwell being a Luton fan because they lost points, from spitting in the direction, I know he claimed he didn't, but he spat in the direction of referees, obviously throwing his toys out of the pram once again, like the crybaby that he is. What else has he done? Towards the back end of last season, when they absolutely bottled a game against bottom of the league or second bottom of the league, Leicester, went on the pitch to have an absolute go at his gaffer. He is a crybaby. The man is the hugest crybaby. I don't even know how old he is, but the man acts like a child. Honestly, what, I don't understand this at all. So Morgan Gibbs-White has a £60 million release clause. Tottenham Hotspur have triggered that release clause, but he doesn't want to let him go because, first of all, well, a few reports are saying that he's not happy with the stature of club that Morgan Gibbs-White wants to go to, because obviously he believes that Morgan Gibbs-White should be playing the Liverpool's, Man City's, I guess them teams anyway, or Chelsea, I guess, but Chelsea got about 19 million players. He doesn't see Tottenham as one of the top clubs in the league, so doesn't understand why Morgan Gibbs-White would want to go there. First of all, not even historically. I know his fans are, well, you're not massive, but you know what I mean. In terms of big clubs, we're still a big six club, if you want to say there's even a big six anymore. We're based in London as well, which is a massive selling point, because let's be honest, if you were absolutely minted, where would you want to live in this country? And yes, that would be London. And yeah, he's just crying. Honestly, I don't understand what his issue is. How can you put a £60 million release clause in a player's contract, and then when it gets triggered, you're saying, no, that's not right? Obviously, he's saying about the confidentiality of it, but what's the point of having a release clause if no one can know about it? Because it makes no sense. And if we go back to towards the back end of last season, there was a lot of Man City links with Morgan Gibbs-White. And I remember seeing things saying roughly 80 to £100 million. That's what Nottingham Forest would be looking for. So let's say if we went about it the right way and we knocked on his door to say we want to buy Morgan Gibbs-White, he would have said £100 million. Well, what's the point in that when he's got a release clause for 60 million? So if we then paid it with £40 million, it for no reason, because obviously he's got a £60 million release clause. Now, they're saying, oh, we didn't give him permission to talk to our player. Well, they obviously spoke to his agent, because that's what happens in every single transfer. It would make absolutely zero sense for Tottenham to go to Nottingham Forest. How much is it going to cost us to sign Morgan Gibbs-White? They're obviously not going to say £60 million, because they're clearly not happy with the £60 million. But let's say they said 80 million. Tottenham like, okay, let's speak to Morgan Gibbs-White. And Morgan Gibbs-White says, well, I don't want to go to Tottenham. Then that whole process is pointless. So, of course, you're going to speak to his agents before you make the move, because it's so point. For example, another example, let me give you. If we all agreed it went about the way that Nottingham Forest want us to do it, and then we then came back and said, okay, well, we're now signing Morgan Gibbs-White. We've agreed a figure with Nottingham Forest. How much money do you want a week? Morgan Gibbs-White comes back and says 250 grand a week. Tottenham are obviously not going to pay that. So once again, what would be the point in making that move if you don't know how much it's going to cost you? Because then if you go to the 250 grand a week, would it be like, well, we're not giving you that, and then it's just a whole waste of the process. So you have to do your due diligence and speak to the agent to find out, one, does he actually want to come to Spurs? Two, what's it going to cost us weekly wage? And three, what is it going to cost us? And it would be so stupid of the agent if the player says, "Yeah, I'd love to go to Spurs." For the agent, if they're now asking, "Okay, well, what do you think is going to cost us?" For the agent to not say, "Oh, well, he's got a £60 million release clause," it make no sense. Because if you then say 50 million and Tottenham go in and bid 50 million, and then Forest say, "Well, no, we're not accepting 50 million," well, we could have just scratched that bone because we know exactly how much it's going to cost us. So he's just an absolute baby. I don't understand what he's doing because it's not a good look for players that are going to go to. Think about it. If a player wants to, I know Forest obviously see themselves as a massive club. Yes, I know they've got a big history, so I appreciate that. But if a player is looking for a board that Nottingham Forest, and they want to use Nottingham Forest as, let's say, as a stepping stone, if they now see it and say, "Whoa, but if I come in and sign and then a big team comes in for me, how can I guarantee they're going to let me go?" Because as we see in, they've got a player with a release clause and a team of ready to play that release clause, and they still don't want to let him go. So I don't think it's a good look from that way. It's also a bad look because Morgan Gibbs-White clearly wants to go anyway. So I know he's attended training, so yes, he's not throwing his toys out of the pram, which is good because you don't like players with bad attitudes anyway. But what is the point in doing that as well? Because now it's going to look like to the other players, "Oh, like, I don't know what I feel here." And then you just, obviously Morgan Gibbs, I personally think is going to get done. Obviously it might not. We'll see what happens, but I think it's going to get done eventually. But it's just shooting yourself in the foot as well, because the longer you then leave it, if he then eventually goes towards the back end of the season, then you've left yourself less time to replace him with the funds that obviously you would have got. And then you're just costing your own team, because the manager can then say, "Okay, we're losing Morgan. We've got 60 million. Let's now reinvest it." But you're just kicking the can down the road. And I really don't understand like what the point of this is. Obviously, it looks like, yes, they just want more money. But once again, Tottenham Hotspur did not put £60 million release clause in Morgan Gibbs-White's contract. It was obviously agreed by Morgan Gibbs-White, his agents, Evangelos, Marinakis, and whoever else at the club does that sort of thing. So you wanting more money makes no sense because you've put that figure in. No one else has put that figure in except from you lot. Whether you like it or not, you've agreed to put that figure in his clause, so in his contract. And you can't just throw your toys out the pram now because you realize. Because yeah, I'm admitting Morgan Gibbs White is definitely worth more than £60 million in this current market, because obviously this market is finished nowadays. But Morgan Gibbs White is, yes, probably worth more than 60 million. But it's not our fault that you've messed up and done that. If you wanted something like that, you should have just put like 100 million in, or for example. Maybe he might not have signed the contract, but who's the owner here? Like, come on, you're the one that's making the decisions. If he didn't like it, then you needed to do something. And obviously, there's been reports as well that over the last 12 months, Nottingham Forest have been trying to get him to sign a new contract. They've been looking at making him one of the highest paid players at the club for exchange in either increasing that release clause or taking it out completely. So once again, that shows that Nottingham Forest know that they have messed up badly, because his release clause is too low. But that is not a Tottenham issue. Like, we've offered the money, so you're just going to have to take it. For example, look at Erling Haaland. His release clause when he left Dortmund to go to City was like 50-something million. And in that market, Erling Haaland was no way near 50 million, but it was in his release clause. So there's nothing else you can do for it because the team are going to pay it. But yeah, I really don't know. The fact that he's threatening legal action. The thing that he's threatening legal action is just another thing, because why are you threatening it? Just get do the legal action. And what are you going around the bush for? But honestly, I really don't know what's going on. Like, if Forest fans are watching this, let me know what you think as well, because I don't know. Is it a good look for a player that's got 2 years left on his contract? If he doesn't go this window, then he goes, let's say, next summer. Well, he's still the only money you're going to get is 60 million anyway. And is it really worth keeping a player that doesn't want to be there at your club? Like, I don't really get it. And for example, let's say he says, "All right, let me run down my contract." Now you've got nothing for a player that you were going to get 60 million for. So I don't really know. Like, Spurs fans, Forest fans, let me know what you think in the comments, because it's a strange one. Like, I know obviously Michael Elise had a 50 million clause, but apparently there was something in there that obviously that Chelsea triggered it, but it had to be offers up. Like, it's so weird. Like, I don't really understand it, but Evangelos Marinakis is just making himself even more and more hated. Like, obviously what he's doing to us, yeah, it's not that great in the bigger scheme of things. But as I said earlier, you look at the things like what he's done to Crystal Palace. Like Crystal Palace deservingly deserved to be in that Europa League, and the fact that Marinakis was the first person to write to the league and say, "Well, what's going on here?" They've got dual ownership. It's just like, what are you? You're a snitch. You're a crybaby. You're, I don't know. You're everything, man. But let me know what you think in the comments, man, because Morgan Gibbs-White needs to be freed. Let him out. Hashtag free Morgan Gibbs-White. Evangelos Marinakis, please stop crying. Stop the tears.